Hi, my name is Valerie Anderson. I'm a yoga teacher and a movement coach. Today we're going to talk about wrists and palms on the mat in movement and in yoga. And it's going to be broken up into two different sections. The first part, I'm going to teach you how to modify your practice, and that might be temporary as you strengthen and as you work on your wrist flexibility, or it could be long term. You could keep these modifications for the rest of your time on the mat. The second part is going to be how you can do a little stretch and a little strengthen to support your wrists. So for modifications, I'm going to start with a couple of prop options. So blocks come in a variety of sizes, and they can individually themselves be used on different levels for different heights. So if you can imagine that I have two similar size blocks, I actually do, but I wanted to show you the two different sizes here. You can actually also get cork blocks, which were nice. So the great thing about having blocks is that when you put your palms on them, your weight is going to shift back towards your heels and towards your legs. So you're not putting as much weight downward and forward onto your palms and to your wrists. And if you have really long legs, then naturally your weight might be shifted forward. If you have shorter arms and a shorter torso, then that's just anatomy and gravity, right? So the blocks kind of equalize, or they can add more weight towards your back end, your strong legs, instead of putting all the weight into your wrists and into your arms. And another really cool thing that you can utilize blocks for is if I were to flex into my wrist, and by the way, our wrists don't naturally go into a 90-degree angle. We have to force them. We have to leverage them into a 90-degree angle. So if I ball up my fingers, if I curl them out, and I can actually make that 90-degree angle, but then once I start to unravel my fingers, I lose that 90-degree angle. So what does that tell you? It tells you that with your palms flat, if you have the ability to curl your fingers, then you're going to be able to get into that 90-degree range. So use the end of the block to let your fingers curl over it. Another great way to take weight off your wrist besides the blocks is to have your wrists stacked in front of your shoulder. So it's just a simple shift backwards, or if you want to think your palms might have to walk forward on the mat. That way it decreases the angle in the wrist. So here's my shoulder stacked right over my wrist, and then here's when I just shift back a little bit. And that applies to being flat on the mat too. Instead of having my shoulder right over my wrist, I just shift back, and then it decreases that angle. So that's why it's nice to have blocks. That's why it's nice to have that shift backwards. This can also work in down dog. It's a little bit more tricky, but it's possible. And again, allows the weight to go back towards the feet and the legs for down dog positions and other positions like that, instead of into the wrists, into the palms. And that stacking straight over is what creates the most direct weight into the palms at that 90 degrees. So just shift back, let your fingers curl. If you don't have blocks, or you don't like the blocks, they're too high, or you just don't want to add them to your practice, then there's some other options. Some people use wedges. And again, it decreases that angle. So if you wanted to keep the stack of your shoulders over the wrist, or you can put the shoulders behind the wrists. I find that's a little bit easier to have the shoulders over the wrists with wedges. Otherwise, it sort of feels like I'm gonna slide off of them. But yogi's choice, right? Your choice. Another thing is you could double your mats up, more cushioning, and then take the top one and roll it over. And then again, let the fingers come over the edge of the mat. So you can just use your own mat or two as part of your props. You don't have to have the blocks, but if you do, then it's awesome. All right, so a couple of ways that you can strengthen and create flexibility for the wrist is I want to mention straight off, you should be warming up. If you go straight into tabletop and a bunch of push-ups in your yoga class and that's bothering your wrists, then you need to find a class that allows you to give your wrists a warm up. Maybe that's even you getting to class early and warming your wrists up on your own. So simple movements, circling around, shifting left to right. Some people will draw the alphabet, or just as long as you're moving them around in all the directions. So knocking, supinate, pronate, circumduction, going around in circles, that kind of activity is gonna get your wrists warmed up. And then you can start applying both static pressure and momentum pressure. So a static and leveraged way of stretching your wrist would just be going into like a prayer pose and then pushing into your wrists. You can hold on each side. That way you can control how much pressure you're putting into it and how much weight, versus when you're on your palms, it can be too much. You can even flip them around and over. Hold and pause. Another one that I really like is to kind of battle with your hands. So you can take your palm and pull back and then push in. And you kind of lose and win the battle with yourself. And then you can do that with your palm up too. So lose and win the battle with yourself. And it's kind of nice because you're doing both hands at the same time, because you're pressing into one hand's pressing back, right? You can even flip the palm and do it, or flip it this way and do it. These are similar to doing it on the floor as well. You just have a way to leverage more weight into it at some point. So when you're doing it on the floor, then as you press down into the floor, it's as if I'm trying to push myself up and off and I'm not actually going anywhere. And then the same for the top, push down into the floor, as if we want to flick the palm up, but we're not actually going anywhere. You choose the angle. So some people can put the whole back of their palm down, some people can't, and you just work with the fingers. That's fine. Same thing here. You could put that wedge into play and then still do that pressing down action. And I'm using that other hand to take weight too. And then you can get into exercises like doing lifts of the palm off the mat. So you're slowly peeling your palm off. Slowly peeling your palm off and back. And you decide how much weight you put into it. If you're gonna be forward, if you're gonna be back, you can do one at a time, which is what I'm demonstrating. And then you can flip them up and down. And then one last one, if you don't have a weight, you can do a water bottle, and you might want to try to find a skinnier one, not like a big Nalgene one. And small weight, so like 5 or less, and then just turn at the wrists. And the thing about this is if you want to make sure that your elbow and arm isn't taking any movement, then you can put your other palm there. Just make sure that it's the wrist that's moving. You can also do that knocking action. I like the side to side one, that's a pretty good one. All right. So those are my progressive tips for your palms and wrists. Start with the blocks. That seems doable. Then maybe you go to a skinnier block, or maybe you just have your mat rolled up, or you can buy yourself one of the wedges. And then once you get to the floor itself, then consider palms in front. And then, make sure that you're warming up, make sure that you're strengthening, and making sure that you're stretching your wrists. And some of these activities you can even do off the mat, like at your desk, at the office. You can stand up real quick, put your palms down on the desk, do a couple of lifts, especially if you type and use your wrists a lot, then it might help to strengthen them so that as you're typing that you don't have any aggravation there as well that leaks into yoga, or vice versa. Aggravation from yoga poses on your wrists start to leak into your office life. All right, let me know if you want more tips and if this video worked for you. Thanks.